When we talk about the cost of being broke, we usually think about the obvious stuff: overdraft fees, insane interest rates, late penalties. But there's another tax, a hidden one, that's way more expensive. It's not a tax on your wallet, it's a tax on your brain power, your intelligence, your sheer mental bandwidth. So let's pull back the curtain and really look at the true price of financial insecurity.
So the big idea we're diving into here is what's called the mental tax. Just imagine waking up every single morning with an automatic penalty on your IQ and your energy. And this is before you've even had a sip of coffee. Now, this isn't some medical condition. For millions of people, it's just the reality of their bank account. And it's not just about feeling stressed. It's a measurable drain on your ability to think clearly and make good decisions.
So, let's break this down a bit. We all get the costs you see on a bank statement, right? The fees, the penalties, they're frustrating. But the invisible costs, the IQ penalty, the drained energy, the lost bandwidth, those are the ones that are truly damaging. See, these are the things that actually keep people trapped, making it so much harder to solve the very problems that are causing all the stress in the first place.
Okay, so how does this actually work in our brains? Well, that brings us to our first section, how financial insecurity literally forces your brain into what's called survival mode. And look, this isn't just a metaphor, it's a real biological state that hijacks your brain chemistry, and it reroutes all of your focus onto one single thing, just getting through the next 24 hours.
And yeah, this is the brutal math of that mental tax. Before you make a single decision for the day, before you even get out of bed, your cognitive resources are already seriously depleted. You're starting every single day from a deficit, which makes every task, whether it's your job or just being a parent, so much harder.
So what's the actual mechanism behind this mental drain? Well, it's a nasty 1-2 punch from two powerful forces: decision fatigue and cortisol. The first one is a psychological exhaustion that comes from making way too many small choices. And the second is a biological response from the main stress hormone that's just flooding your system. Let's break each one down.
First up, let's talk about decision fatigue. When you have a bit of a financial cushion, most of these daily choices are pretty much automatic. But without one, every single purchase becomes this complex, draining calculation. You're standing in the grocery store staring at cereal, and you're not just choosing between Cheerios and Frosted Flakes. You're asking, okay, if I buy the good stuff for the kids, can I still afford gas to get to work on Friday? Every one of these little micro-decisions just chips away at your mental energy.
This quote just nails it. It really is like having 50 tabs open on your computer at all times. When, say, 90% of your thoughts are eaten up by these survival calculations, your brain's processor just slows to a crawl. You're not deciding what you want, you're constantly calculating what you can survive. By the end of the day, you're just mentally fried, with absolutely nothing left for the kind of big-picture thinking that actually helps you get ahead.
And this brings us to that second part of the 1-2 punch. Because the mental exhaustion is bad enough, right? But it's made so much worse by a powerful biological reaction. This isn't just a feeling of being tired or overwhelmed, it's a physical, hormonal response happening inside your body.
Let's use a super common scenario. You're driving and bam, this light comes on. Now for someone with a healthy savings account, this is just an annoyance. They think, great, I'll have to get that checked out this week. But for someone living paycheck to paycheck, that same light is a countdown timer to a potential catastrophe.
The internal monologue immediately spirals into crisis mode. Your heart rate spikes. Your brain is flooded with cortisol, the body's main stress hormone. See, that hormone is designed for fight or flight situations, and it basically shuts down the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning and impulse control. Your body literally thinks it's being hunted by a predator.
So, let me ask you this. Think about a time you made a questionable impulse buy after a really tough day. Maybe it was expensive takeout you couldn't afford, or some gadget you didn't really need. That wasn't you being bad with money. That was your exhausted brain drowning in cortisol, desperately searching for a quick hit of dopamine just to feel some relief. It's a totally predictable biological response, not some kind of moral failing.
And really, this is the crucial point. This quote says it all. When your financial house feels like it's constantly on fire, you can't possibly think about remodeling. This constant state of emergency makes long-term planning, like, say, building a new financial foundation, feel almost impossible. Your brain is simply too busy putting out fires. Okay, now I know this all sounds pretty bleak, but there is a solution. And it's not about becoming a millionaire overnight. It's about reaching what we're going to call the clarity threshold, a surprisingly small amount of money that can finally turn off that fire alarm and buy back your brain power.
And we've actually got data on this. Research from Vanguard is really eye-opening.
A person's financial well-being score jumps by a massive 21% with just $2,000 in savings. Think about that. That small buffer creates a huge psychological shift because it moves you out of that pure minute-to-minute survival mode. The fire alarm isn't blaring quite as loudly anymore. But the real magic number, the point where that mental tax essentially disappears, happens right around here, $10,000. At this level, that check engine light we were talking about stops being a full-blown crisis and becomes what it always should have been. Just a mild annoyance. You're still not happy about it, but you're not panicking. And this is where everything changes. You stop agonizing over the $3 coffee or the name brand cereal because you realize those tiny little micro decisions are pretty much irrelevant to your long-term financial health. The mental energy that you used to spend on those tiny calculations is now free. This is the point where you get your brain back.
So what do you do with all of this recovered brain power? You reinvest it. And that brings us to our final section, how you can shift your entire financial mindset from just playing defense to actually playing offense.
Here's the difference. The defensive mindset is all about survival, right? Avoiding fees, managing tiny costs, just trying not to lose. But the offensive mindset is where you finally have the mental space to focus on opportunities, to calculate the return on investment for your time and your money, and to make smart, strategic moves.
Let's look at some real-world examples to make this clear. Without savings, a career conference is just an expense you can't afford. But with savings, it's an investment you can actually analyze for its potential return. Without savings, a real estate listing is just something you scroll past with a little bit of envy. With savings, you have the bandwidth to actually run the numbers and see if it's a real opportunity. This is what people mean when they say money goes to money. It's not magic, it's bandwidth.
But honestly, the most valuable thing you get from saving that first $10,000 isn't even the money itself. It's the identity shift. You fundamentally prove to yourself that you can delay gratification. You stop being the kind of person who needs money, and you become the kind of person who has money. And once you build that identity for yourself, saving the next $10,000 becomes infinitely easier. So here's the bottom line. If you're feeling completely overwhelmed, stop trying to get rich overnight. Your first and most important goal is simply to silence the noise. Get your cortisol levels down. Reduce that decision fatigue. Your real objective is to get your brain to a place where it can actually work for you instead of against you.
And the benefits of this go way beyond your bank account. People with emergency funds just sleep better. They're less irritable with their families. They're more focused, more productive employees. All because that constant nagging distraction of financial stress is finally gone. You are literally buying back your own peace of mind. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. What opportunities could you spot? What problems could you solve? What kind of parent or partner or professional could you be if that constant low-grade hum of financial anxiety was finally turned off? Who are you without the mental tax?